Christmas dinner, turkey, ham, mashed potatoes, boring, right? But what if I told you black families in the 1960s were feasting on pig's heads, souse, and chitlins? Yeah, you heard that right. Pig's heads, not ham, the whole head. Buckle up because we're diving into 6 Christmas dishes that are as crazy as they sound. And yes, people actually ate these and loved them. This isn't just about weird food. This is about survival, creativity, and turning nothing into everything. This is about grandmothers who refused to waste a single scrap and made Christmas magic out of parts of the pig you didn't even know existed. So grab a plate and an open mind because some of these dishes are going to blow your mind and maybe make you hungry or nauseous. We'll see. Let's start with the wildest one, hog's head cheese. Now, before you panic, it's not actually cheese. It's a cold cut made from the head of a pig, set in gelatin. Yeah, the whole head. Eyes, snout, everything gets boiled down. Imagine this: a block of pig head meat, spiced, pressed, and sliced. You're thinking, oh, right? But back in the 1960s, this was a Christmas delicacy. Cheap, filling, and honestly kind of genius. Here's the history. During slavery, enslaved Africans were given the worst parts of the pig, the parts white slaveholders didn't want: the head, the feet, the organs, everything considered scraps. But black cooks turned those scraps into cuisine. They perfected the art of using every single part of the animal. Nothing wasted, nothing thrown away. That wasn't just frugality. That was survival. That was resistance. Grandma always said, waste nothing, eat everything. And honestly, she wasn't wrong. So how do you make hog's head cheese? You take the pig's head, boil it for hours until the meat falls off the bone. Then you pick through all that meat, season it with spices like garlic, onion, black pepper, sometimes hot peppers. Then you press it into a loaf with its own natural gelatin and let it set. What you get is this savory, spiced meat jelly that you slice thin and serve cold, often with crackers, hot sauce, or on sandwiches. It's high in protein, costs almost nothing to make, and feeds a whole family. For Christmas and New Year celebrations, this was often the centerpiece, the thing people looked forward to. Modern health note: it's fatty, yes, but it's also packed with collagen, which is actually good for your joints and skin. Your grandmother was accidentally eating what people now pay $40 for in supplements. So hog's head cheese, weird? Absolutely. Delicious? According to everyone who grew up eating it, yes. A testament to black culinary genius? 100%. All right, let's talk about the dish that divided families. Chitlins, also called chitterlings. These are pig intestines. Yes, intestines, cleaned, boiled, and usually fried. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would anyone eat intestines? Same reason as the hog's head. Enslaved people were given the parts of the pig no one else wanted, and they turned them into tradition. By the 1960s, chitlins weren't just food. They were a Christmas tradition in black households across the South. Families would gather, spend an entire day cleaning them together, and by evening, everyone would feast. Let's talk about preparation because this is where it gets real. Cleaning chitlins is not easy. You have to turn them inside out, scrape off everything you don't want to think about, soak them in vinegar water, rinse them multiple times. It's a full day job. My Aunt Laverne from Memphis used to say, cleaning chitlins was a full day job, but by the time they hit the table, everyone was fighting for seconds. That's the thing. The preparation was a bonding experience. Multiple generations in the kitchen, telling stories, laughing, complaining about the smell, but doing it together because this was tradition. This was Christmas. Once they're clean, you boil them with onions, garlic, and spices. Some people fry them after boiling for extra crunch. You serve them with hot sauce, vinegar, and cornbread to soak up all the flavor. The smell while cooking, strong, very strong. You either grew up with it and it smells like home, or you didn't and you're wondering why the whole house smells like that. But here's the truth. Despite the smell, despite the work, chitlins became a symbol of taking what you were given and making it special, a symbol of family gathering in the kitchen, a symbol of Christmas not being about what you could afford, but about what you could create together. Safety note: chitlins have to be cleaned properly. Intestines can carry bacteria like Salmonella and E. coli. That's why the cleaning process is so intense and why you have to cook them thoroughly. Generations of black grandmothers knew this instinctively. They were food scientists before anyone called it that. So chitlins, controversial? Yes. Traditional? Absolutely. A labor of love? 100%. Would I eat them? If grandma made them, yes. If a random restaurant made them, I'm good. Now we're getting into my comfort zone. Neck bones. These are exactly what they sound like, Vaal. The neck cuts from pork or sometimes beef, usually with a little meat on them, but mostly bone and cartilage. At the grocery store, neck bones are the cheap cuts, the ones people walk past looking for better options. But in black kitchens, these were gold. Here's the secret. Cheap cuts plus patience equals incredible flavor. And neck bones are proof. You take those bones, brown them in a cast iron skillet with some oil. Then you add onions, garlic, maybe some bell peppers. Season with salt, pepper, paprika, whatever your family's secret blend is. Then you add liquid, usually water or broth, cover it and let it simmer, low and slow, for hours. What happens is magic. That little bit of meat becomes fall off the bone tender. The marrow seeps out and enriches the gravy. The connective tissue breaks down into gelatin that makes everything silky and rich. You serve it over rice. And that rice, it soaks up every drop of that gravy, every molecule of flavor. For Christmas dinner in the 1960s, this wasn't a side dish. This was often the main event because you could feed a whole family on 2 pounds of neck bones and a pot of rice. My grandmother used to say neck bones don't need fancy, they need time and respect. And she was right. This dish taught me something important. Expensive doesn't mean better. Some of the best food comes from the cheapest ingredients when you know what you're doing. Neck bones on a Christmas table weren't about poverty. They were about turning limitation into luxury. They were about making do with what you had and making it taste like royalty. And honestly, I'd take a plate of neck bones over a dry turkey any day of the week. All right, now we're getting into pickle territory. Souse. Souse is pickled pig parts, usually pig's feet or parts of the head preserved in a vinegar brine served cold. This has Caribbean influence that made its way into Southern black kitchens and became a Christmas staple. So how do you make souse? You take pig's feet or head parts, boil them until tender. Then you pack them in jars with vinegar, spices like bay leaves, peppercorns, hot peppers, onions, and sometimes a little sugar. Let it pickle for days or weeks. What you get is this tangy, spicy, gelatinous situation that people either love or absolutely cannot handle. It's the dish that says, yes, I'm fancy, but also thrifty. It's celebratory and practical at the same time. Historically, pickling was how you preserved meat before refrigeration. Vinegar is acidic enough to prevent bacterial growth, which means souse could last for months. That's science. That's food safety practiced by people who didn't have microbiology degrees but understood it anyway. For Christmas, souse was often served as an appetizer or a side. You'd slice it thin, serve it with crackers or bread, maybe some hot sauce. The texture is, admittedly, an acquired thing. It's gelatinous because of all the collagen. It jiggles. Some people find that off-putting, others find it delicious. But here's what I love about souse. It's proof that black cooks didn't just survive, they innovated. They took preservation techniques from Africa and the Caribbean, combined them with what was available in the South, and created something entirely new. Souse wasn't desperation food by the 1960s. It was tradition. It was heritage on a plate. It was something families requested because Christmas didn't feel complete without it. Would I try it? Yes. Would I make it myself? Probably not. Do I respect the history behind it? Absolutely. Okay, this one sounds wild, but hear me out. Hog maw. Hog maw is a pig's stomach, cleaned out, stuffed with potatoes, onions, and spices, then boiled or baked until everything is tender and delicious. Yes, a stomach. But before you judge, remember that sausage casings are intestines and nobody blinks at hot dogs. This dish is Pennsylvania Dutch in origin, but black families in the South adopted it and made it their own. By the 1960s, it was showing up on Christmas tables, especially in areas where black and Pennsylvania Dutch communities overlapped. Preparation is key. You have to clean that stomach thoroughly, inside and out. Then you stuff it like you're making the world's weirdest potato casserole. Potatoes, onions, sometimes sausage, always seasoning. You sew it shut or tie it up, then cook it low and slow. What you end up with is this incredibly flavorful, hearty dish where the potatoes absorb all the pork flavor and the stomach itself becomes tender and edible. One family member described it as Christmas comfort food. Cheap, but somehow felt like luxury. And that's the theme here, right? Taking the cheapest ingredients and making them feel special, making them celebratory, making them Christmas. Hogmaw wasn't about being poor, it was about being resourceful. It was about refusing to let economic limitations define your holiday. The nutritional profile is actually solid. Potatoes for carbs and potassium, pork stomach for protein, onions for flavor and some vitamins. You're getting a complete meal in one weird package. Would this make it on modern Christmas tables? Probably not. Does it deserve respect for what it represented? Absolutely. It represented making magic out of scraps. It represented family traditions that said, we might not have much, but we're going to feast anyway. Let's end on something slightly less intense. Two dishes that show the range of Black Christmas cooking. Pickled watermelon rind and molasses candied yams. First, pickled watermelon rind. Who knew the part of the watermelon you threw away could become a holiday favorite? After eating watermelon in summer, thrifty cooks would save the rinds, the white part between the green skin and the red fruit. They'd cut it into chunks, pickle it with vinegar, sugar, and spices like cinnamon and cloves. What you get is this sweet, tart, crunchy condiment that's absolutely delicious. It's like a relish. You serve it alongside rich, fatty meats to cut through the heaviness. It's refreshing. It's surprising. It's summer preserved for winter. This is resourcefulness at its peak, taking literal garbage and turning it into a delicacy. That's not poverty. That's genius. Now, molasses candied yams. This is the dish everyone actually fought over. Yams or sweet potatoes, sliced thick, layered in a baking dish, covered in molasses, butter, cinnamon, maybe some nutmeg, baked until golden and bubbling. Why molasses instead of sugar? Cost. In the 1960s, molasses was cheaper than refined sugar, but it also adds this deep, complex, almost caramel-like flavor that regular sugar can't match. The yams get soft and tender. The molasses creates this thick, sticky syrup. Everything caramelizes together into what is essentially dessert, but also a side dish. Every family had their own version. Some added marshmallows, though that was more of a later thing. Some added orange zest. Some added a little vanilla. But the base was always molasses and yams. This dish represents joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. While some of the other dishes on this list might seem unusual or challenging to modern palates, everybody understands candied yams. Sweet, comforting, delicious. But even this simple dish carries history. Yams connect back to Africa. Sweet potatoes became a substitute in America, but the cooking method, the importance on the holiday table, that all comes from African culinary traditions. And the pickled watermelon rind? That's taking absolutely nothing and making it something. That's the ultimate expression of waste not, want not. Together, these two dishes show the range, from the challenging and unusual to the universally beloved, both rooted in the same principle. Use everything, waste nothing, make it delicious, make it Christmas. From pig's heads to molasses yams, Black Christmas kitchens transform scraps into feasts, struggle into flavor, and necessity into celebration. These 6 dishes, hog's head cheese, chitlins, neck bones, souse, hog maw, pickled watermelon rind, and molasses yams, they weren't just food, they were resistance. They were creativity. They were love. They represent generations of people who refuse to let poverty, oppression, or limitation define their celebrations, who took the worst parts of the pig and made them the best parts of Christmas. These dishes are history, they're culture, they're proof that Black culinary genius has always existed, always innovated, always created something beautiful out of whatever was available. Some of these traditions continue today. Some have faded as economic circumstances changed and people had access to different foods. But they deserve to be remembered. They deserve to be respected. because they're part of the story of how Black families survived, thrived, and celebrated even when the world tried to take everything from them. So which of these wild Christmas dishes would you dare to try? The hog's head cheese, the chitlins, the neck bones, maybe just the candied yams? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you've got family recipes or memories of these dishes, share them. This history lives in stories, and I want to hear yours. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more stories where history tastes amazing, because we've got plenty more dishes, traditions, and untold culinary stories coming your way. Until next time, remember that the best food doesn't come from fancy restaurants. It comes from grandmothers who knew how to make magic out of nothing, and that's something worth celebrating.